Welcome amigos to this After Effects tutorial, and this one is inspired by my love for baseball cards. Ken Griffey Jr., you can't go wrong, especially if you have his Upper Deck rookie card. The techniques that we're going to use in today's tutorial, I recently used on an ESPN project, and we'll be using shape layers to create this baseball cards. And if you want to dive deeper into shape layers and master the tools, techniques, and workflow in After Effects, definitely check out my After Effects Master course. I give you step-by-step instructional video to get you up and running in After Effects in no time. The link is in the description. And also, I'm providing this After Effects project file, this template, where you can use any of these designs for your own use. And remember, amigos, that life is truly a gift. Make it count. Let's start by creating a new composition. Head over to the comp icon. Let's click on it. Let's call this comp baseball card and make it 1280 by 1800 and choose the best frame rate for your project. Here in the United States, sports broadcast is 29.97. Sometimes it's 59.94, but I'm always working at 29.97. So whatever area of the world you live in, choose the frame rate for that area or for your client. Now the duration, I'll make it 10 seconds long. It doesn't matter. We can always come back and we can make it longer, but make sure that you start off with enough duration. So let's hit OK. And what I like to do is just go to Google Images and just look for different examples. And these are different examples that I've downloaded. And let's go to this one. This is a 2020 Topps Heritage, and we'll use the Cody Bellinger as an example. So I'll bring it into my comp. I'll hit S for scale, and let's scale it up all the way so it fits the frame. And I'll use this now as a template or as an example so I can build this baseball card. Or it could also be a football card, soccer, basketball, hockey, whatever sport you're interested in. Okay, what we'll do is we'll create shape layers, and the first one will be for this white section, and inside you can see there's a rounded rectangle. So let's go to our baseball card. You can see that this image is selected. Let's deselect by clicking outside. Nothing is selected. Now we can head over to the shape tool, go to the rectangle tool, and like I said, make sure nothing is selected, and let's double click. And it creates a shape layer the size of your composition. For now, let's go to the fill, select none, and you can see right here, shape layer. And we can call this picture box. Now let's scroll down to rectangle path, and let's adjust the size. Let's make this smaller. Let's make this 1160. Let's unlink it. Let's change the size on the y-axis. And let's move this down. Let's make this a little bit taller. 1410 maybe. And let's bring this down to 130. Let's make this 1415. And this looks pretty good. Now let's rename this to outer rectangle. And let's make a copy of this. Select this, Control C or Command C. If you're using an Apple computer, go to rectangle 1, select it, and hit Control V or Command V. And here it is. Let's bring it right under outer rectangle. And this copy, let's call it inner rectangle. And let's drill down. And what we'll do is let's link it and let's scale it. Let's make it 1120. Let's unlink it. Let's make this 1365. And let's go to the roundness and let's change it and let's make it 85. So this is looking pretty good. Now what I'll do is I'll solo this. And let's go back and let's change the color to white. And what we need to do is subtract this inner rectangle. So let's go back, select rectangle 1, and let's add a merge path. And let's go to mode and let's switch it to subtract. And if we toggle the transparency grid, you can see, let's bring back the card so you can see actually it doesn't really help. But if we change the color, you can see that we have it transparent in the middle. We cut it out. Okay, let's go on to the next section. And this is using shape layers. If you want to dive deeper into shape layers, definitely check out my After Effects Master Course Level 2 Intermediate. We dive deep into shape layers. Now make sure that you have all your layers deselected. Go back to the rectangle tool, double click to create a shape layer rectangle the size of your comp. This one, let's bring it all the way to the bottom. Let's hide it. And let's go to the fill and let's select this color, and this will be our background. So let's call this card BG. Let's check it out. So it's looking good. And again, we need to cut this area out. So what we'll do is we'll go to the picture box and let's go to the inner. Let's select inner rectangle, merge path. Let's copy it, Control C or Command C. Let's go to the card BG, go down, drill down to rectangle 1, and let's paste it, Control V or Command V, and let's put it right underneath rectangle path 1. And here it is. So this is looking pretty good. And now we can bring in our own image. S for scale, scale it up to 130. We can move it. And this is looking really nice. Okay, now the next section, let's move this layer up here so we can see it. The next section is the text. Now, a lot of these texts for the tops, especially in the 70s and the 60s and the 50s, they were all simple sans serif font, meaning like your Arial fonts or a variation of a sans serif font. So feel free to use these fonts for this. Now this one, this is a very specific style. What I'm going to do, instead of trying to match the exact same font for that, I'm going to improvise a little bit and just use my own font for that. So what I'll do is I'll go to the text tool and let's type in Dodgers, and let's hide the baseball card for now. And this font is actually an Adobe font, so you can get it for free if you're on the Adobe Creative Cloud. Go to Adobe Fonts, and this is called Rig Solid, and they have a couple of different variations, and it's called Bold Reverse. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch it out to 130. The size is 180, and you can make it red, and we can align it right in the middle. And let's go ahead and type in the name of the player and their position. Again, let's go to the text tool, and I'll type in Cody Bellinger. And for this one, again, this is going to be an Adobe font. It's League Gothic. And let's sample this color. And what I'll do is I'll make the width 100, but I'll decrease the size down to 65. And the font size, let's make it 150. And let's put it in here, and this should be a close approximation of the font. It's pretty close. And let's make a copy. Select the layer, the text layer, Control D, Command D to make a copy. Let's move it over. Go to the text tool, and let's change it to outfield. And let's make this circle. Deselect all your layers in the timeline. Go back to the shape tool. Let's go to the ellipse tool and click and drag, holding on to shift to make a perfect circle. Hit Alt Control Home or Option Control Home to bring the anchor point right in the middle. We can change this to white. And make sure that you have no stroke, that your stroke is set to none. And we can move this here. Let's rename this to circle. And let's check it out, what we have so far. Okay. So this is what we have so far. It's looking really nice. We can bring up the Dodgers a little bit. Now you can see if we zoom in, it's really sharp. So one thing that I like to do is two things. We need to add a texture to this, and let's blur this whole image, this whole card. To do that, go to layer, new adjustment layer. And what we'll do is we'll go down to blur. Let's add a Gaussian blur. Let's make it 3 pixels, and let's repeat the edges. And if we zoom in, you can see that if we disable it and enable it, it just looks a lot nicer. And let's go to this paper4.jpg. Now this is a paper texture. If I zoom in, you can see there's this texture on it. What we can do is we can bring this here. Let's put it underneath our adjustment layer. S for scale. Let's scale it down. Let's change the blending mode to multiply. Let's zoom in. You can see, maybe you can see a little bit of the texture, but if you need to bump up the levels, let's do that. Go to color correction, go to levels. Let's just bump it up right here. And you can see that we can see more of that texture. If you want to add grunge or any other textures, go ahead. You can just add more layers on top. One effect, there's an effect plugin that I really like and that adds texture. And that is, if we go to our adjustment layer, go to RG Universe, Red Giant Universe, and it's texturized. It's really cool. And we have different types of just grunge textures that you can use. Let's go to color dodge for this example. Let's see. And then we can decrease opacity. So this gives you a really cool, just grungy type of texture that you can apply to the card. You can contrast, we can play with the contrast, opacity. We have different options to select from. So these are different options you can use. If you have Red Giant Universe, this is a great option to go ahead and add a little bit more grunge to the card. That is how you built this card. That's how I built these cards. And in the next section, I'll show you how to implement it with a video. I got this video clip from YouTube, and it's Cody Bellinger hitting a home run, and right at 2 seconds, I just freeze this video right here. And what we'll do is we'll use this, and the baseball card is going to come in and it's going to stamp it, and this freeze will be the image for the baseball card. So let's go back to the baseball card, and there's a couple things that we need to do to prep it. Let's go ahead and let's delete this layer down here is the original card that we use as reference. Let's delete it. Let's delete, or we can just hide this layer. Now we need to cut out, you can see that we have the adjustment layer and the paper texture. So we need to cut it out. So it's on the card except for this area where the video is going to go. And what we'll do is, let's go to picture box. Let's go to this layer, hit Control D, Command D to make a copy. And let's call this matte. And let's solo this layer for now. And let's drill down. And let's delete outer rectangle and merge path. And let's change the color so you can see it. This is the area that we want. This is perfect. Let's go to matte and let's put it right above our paper. And let's go to track matte, alpha inverted matte. And if you don't see track matte, you see this little icon right here. This is to show track matte. And with the transparency grid, you can see that we cut it out. And let's do it one more time. Let's copy the matte, Control D or Command D. And let's do the same thing for the adjustment layer, alpha inverted. Perfect. So this is all ready to go. And let's go to our project and let's locate the baseball card comp. Let's make a copy of this composition, Control D, and let's call this video card. And this is just an exact copy of our baseball card. But what we'll do is, what we want to do is, let's go and select all these layers. Hold on to Shift. Let's select all these layers and let's delete it. And let's bring back our matte. Let's call it matte. And let's bring in our baseball card. So we have this right now. Hit Control K or Command K if you're using a Mac. Let's change this back to 1920 by 1080. And our baseball card, let's parent it to our matte. And what we can do is if we hit S for scale, you see it's all working together. Perfect. Now you can bring in now your video, but for this, our video is inside this comp. So I'll bring this comp instead and let's put it right underneath our matte. Let's color code this blue for Dodgers. And this one will be alpha matte. Now, if we scale our matte, this is what we get. So this is working perfect. And remember that it freezes at 2. So what we'll do is for our matte, hit S for scale and Shift P for position. Click on the stopwatch to add keyframes. Let's go back to 110, or wherever you want it to start. Let's add keyframes and hit K to jump forward to the next set of keyframes. And here, what we'll do is for the scale, let's scale it down to about 54%. And we can bring it up a little bit along the Y-axis. There you go. And we can select these keyframes. And what we can do is go to Animation, Keyframe Assistant, and just hit Easy Ease. So this is what we have. Okay, so we have actually this scale right here. We have to scale it up all the way, about 180. So let's check it out. Perfect. Now the next step is, let's make these all 3D layers. Turn on the 3D switch. And let's go to Layer New, Camera. Make it 50 millimeter. Choose the 50 millimeter preset. And go to Matte, hit U to see the keyframes. Go to Camera and hit P and Shift A to bring up the point of interest. And let's add keyframes. And let's just move this maybe around here on 5. And using the camera tools right here, the orbit, track X, Y, and the track Z. And notice that C, the letter C for Charlie, is the keyboard shortcut. So if we hit C, we toggle through the different shortcuts for the camera tool. So what we'll do is we'll go to the orbit, we'll orbit this, we'll go to the track Z, we'll pull back, and we'll go to the X, Y, and we'll get something like this. And we can go back, and from here on, it's just use the camera tools and just move the camera wherever you want. If you've been following me on YouTube, you know that I like to use a null object to control my camera, and go ahead and do that. For more complex work, I would definitely do that. For now, I'm just putting keyframes for the position and point of interest for the camera, just to show you that we can move this around. And let's bring in a background. I'll bring in this background for now. And let's move this down. And what we can do is we can scale it down a little bit. And we can tint this, go to color correction, tritone, and we can add a blue. There we go. So this is what we get when we play it back. And obviously I added this wallpaper of the Dodgers, but you can add a texture, you can add a solid background or gradient, whatever background you want. But that is how you can control it, have the baseball card come into frame or the sports card come into frame, and you can move it where you have it look 3D because it's in 3D space, it's a card, so you'll be able to have that perspective. Now, if you want to make the background also a 3D layer, you can come in, and there you go. you can make it move. Obviously, this is something that we would have to make bigger to cover up this area. And we can always push it back in Z space. Let's push it back in Z space. Let's scale it up a little bit more and possibly move it over on the X. So we have this, and you can see that there is more depth between the baseball card and the background. And if we switch our views to custom view 1, and if we orbit, you can see that that is the distance that we have between the card and the background. That's it, amigos. And that is how you can create the sports card and create this movement on a video. Hopefully this gives you lots of ideas of what you can do for your very own sports card. And remember that life is truly a gift. Make it count.